Turning to our top story this hour, relations between Canada and China have hit rock bottom after a Chinese court on Wednesday jailed Canadian businessman Michael Spavor for 11 years. Spavor was found guilty of spying by China, but Canada has condemned the case as politically motivated. The Dandong court said that Spavor was convicted of espionage and illegally providing state secrets. Spavor was detained in 2018 along with compatriot Michael Kovrig on what Canada has said are trumped-up charges. They were detained after Huawei executive Men Wanzhou was arrested in Canada on a US extradition warrant. Both countries have accused each other of politicizing legal cases. Entrepreneur Spavor and Kovrig, who is a former diplomat, were formally charged for spying in June last year, and their separate trials took place in March. The pair have had almost no contact with the outside world since their detention. Canadian diplomats who were barred from entering Spavor's 3-hour trial in March were present for today's verdict and sentencing.
We condemn in the strongest possible terms this decision rendered after a legal process that lacked both fairness and transparency. Our thoughts are with Michael and his family during this difficult time. We've maintained from the beginning that Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig are being detained arbitrarily, and we will continue to call for their immediate release. And we will continue to work tirelessly to secure their freedom.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau condemned the sentencing, calling it unacceptable and unjust, and said that the trial violated minimum standards required by international law. While Beijing has insisted the detention of the two Canadians is lawful, it calls Meng's case a purely political incident. Meng's extradition hearings began last week in Vancouver after nearly 3 years of court battles and diplomatic sparring. Meng is the daughter of Chinese tech giant Huawei's founder and CEO, Ren Zhengfei. She is fighting extradition to the United States, where she is accused of defrauding HSBC Bank by misrepresenting the relationship between Huawei and Skycom, a subsidiary that sold telecom gear to Iran. That deal put HSBC in jeopardy as it risked breaching US sanctions against Tehran. Meng's legal team deny the allegations and maintain that the US case is flawed. For more on this story, Richard Kimber is joining us live from Hong Kong. Richard, the Canadian businessman has now been jailed for 11 years. Is this a tit-for-tat move for Canada's arrest of the Huawei executive?
Well, analysts here and in China are certainly looking at this, and they're saying that this is evidence that China's really trying to up the ante on its pressure towards having Men Wanzhou released back to China. There's been a long-standing effort from China to put pressure on the Canadian authorities to do that, and they see this as an effort by China to basically act first by having this conviction and sentencing in place for Michael Spavor, pressuring there to be some kind of response in the Men Wanzhou case and some kind of conciliation from the Canadian and ultimately US authorities to push forward that case more promptly and have her returned. So this is seen partly as an ongoing escalation of this long-running standoff where both sides have been accusing one another of politically motivated detentions.
And how will this move affect the relations between China and Canada going forward, especially after a Chinese court has upheld a Canadian man's death sentence for drug smuggling?
Well, it's certainly becoming strained, namely because there has not been really any high-level dialogue between the two sides on this issue. Instead, just a long-running series of exchanges and accusations between the two. When you go to the Chinese Foreign Ministry briefing or you listen to the Hong Kong government's own reciprocations on this issue, it's very much that they're standing off against one another, really, rather than trying to engage in any kind of conciliation. Both sides maintaining that in both cases, the Men Wanzhou arrest in Canada and the detention intentions of the Canadians in China are all lawful under their own respective countries' constitutions, and thereby, in their eyes, there is no need for any kind of formal discussion on these fronts. In the case of Meng Wanzhou, one complication for the case of the Michaels is that her case is a heavily financially related case. It involves a lot of money, high-level companies, expensive legal teams and so on, and because of that it's been dragged out for a very long time, and at the moment there's no real sign that that case will end very quickly. In contrast, the case of the two Michaels has not been one that would be reflected by Western standards as being a very transparent case. There have not been open hearings for Canadian diplomats to attend in the past, and so this case has not really been going through the same kind of process. Instead, there have just been lengthy waits where the families of the Michaels have been waiting to be finding out when those are going to be held, and suddenly a decision is made. So the two things are happening in very different circumstances, and because of that fact, there's no easy way to find a conciliation between two very different legal systems.
Thank you, Richard Kimber, as usual, for your insights.